Hello and welcome to the Sister Sensei channel, where I talk about video games and teaching and life and more video games. If it's your first time here, welcome. I hope you enjoy yourself. If you've been here before, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about failure. See, the other day I was playing Mario Maker 2 and I probably died about 200 times trying to beat a level. I don't have the footage of that or capture card for my Switch for that matter. So I'll just play some footage of me dying repeatedly on a rune level Elden Ring run here. I'm probably at Margit. It's the same concept, just with less bouncing shells and mustaches and more giant goat lizard guy hitting me with a stick and taunting me. Anyway, I think the level was called Oldest Trick in the Book. I'll link the title code in the description so you can find it if you want to. And it was pretty simple. Well, simple in concept. You do a bunch of shell jumps, and not even those really hard ones where you have to hold the B button the entire time. Even after you release the shell, these were pretty simple shell jumps, but there were like 6 of them, and each one was different. And that's what made it so difficult. Each individual trick was doable with 6 in a row. Here, I'll explain. Here's what you had to do. First shell jump was a pretty standard bouncing shell jump. Then the next one was a back shot, off and on-off switch. Then a flying jump into another standard shell jump. Then another one, turn around, bounce it off, jump on some Goombas, grab another shell, hit a switch, bounce off more Goombas to pick up speed. And then a failing Hail Mary blind shell jump over a big muncher, and you win. Did I mention that it was one of those levels where if you touch the ground, you die? It was. The indicators were great. The level was really well designed. The challenge was fair. And when I failed, it was my fault. Except for when the Joy-Cons disconnected in mid-jump. That death is on you, Joy-Cons, that I got off of Amazon from some guy, and they're not real. Anyway. So I tried over and over again, and I get to that third jump and die about 75% of the time, and then start over, repeat, talk to myself, try a new plan, try a new theory on how to be consistent, try again and fail again, try again, fail again, repeat over and over. I'd get to the Goombas section and my bum would clench up and I'd think about it and calm myself down and then go for that last shell jump and just pray that I nailed it. And this went on for like 3 days until finally I got there. I pumped the air and I moved on. 300 attempts easily. Probably more. 3 days. I failed, just like I'm doing here in Elden Ring. And the weird part is, that was kind of the appeal. And it's kind of the appeal of this challenge run that I might finish one day, and it's definitely a huge appeal of the Souls genre in general. At least for me. I love overcoming a challenge. I love the sense of accomplishment you get from overcoming an obstacle. If you are watching this, then I'm assuming you like video games too, or you're a fan of the Souls series, or maybe video game challenges, or maybe just challenges in general. And if you don't, then hello. Thank you for watching, and I hope I say something that appeals to you. Anyway, there are a few feelings in this world for a person like me that are more fulfilling and satisfying than a sense of accomplishment. And that is where I generally stop when I ask myself why I would slam my head against the wall until that wall falls over. I like that feeling. It releases dopamine into my brain. I feel happy. Yay! Psychology! For those of you who have beaten Dark Souls 3, I bet you remember the bosses that stood in your way. And if you beat them, then I bet you died over and over and over again, and for a while it seemed impossible. Maybe you looked up guides, maybe you respect your character, you probably tried dozens of strategies, but you kept going and going and going, and there is probably that boss that stands out for you. There certainly is for me. Pontiff, the Abyss Watchers, Nameless King, but nothing compares to Midir, that giant purple dragon who eats darkness. I wanted to kill him using only a dagger on my first run. Why? Because it would be hard. I knew I'd fail. I knew I'd win eventually, and I wanted that sense of accomplishment. I couldn't think of anything else. I was momentarily obsessed. And Midir killed me more times than I can count. In my real life, I'm a teacher, and during the summer, I often decide on a game or challenge to be a project. And this was the summer of Dark Souls 3. I got stuck on Midir for about 3 days, stabbing him over and over and over with those daggers, and I finally beat him. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, I was on hour 6 of attempts, I think. I said woo so loud I woke up my wife. She asked me why I do stuff like that, because I always seem so ornery while I'm doing it, and I swear under my breath and look very angry. And aren't video games supposed to be fun? You keep telling me it's fun, but you don't look like you're having fun. You definitely have not sounded like you're having any fun. And I was like, no. This is fun. I love this. I'm having the time of my life. Accomplishment is fun. But as I was getting destroyed the other day by turtle shells, a thought came to me. It isn't just the sense of accomplishment that is fun. It's being in a place where I can fail over and over and over again and know that it is okay to fail. And if I try enough, eventually I will succeed. You see, way back in the day, we're talking like 2005, I was teaching history in a high school, and I've been teaching for a long time now, and I've taught a lot of stuff. I've taught history and political science and English and psychology and physics and college prep and so much else. But this was pretty early in my career, and I was working with my mentor teacher, so I didn't know very much at the time. And all around the school, we had these motivational posters, and one was a guy rock climbing, and the caption was, "Failure is not an option." I cannot find a picture of it. I looked. And I don't want to link one from Google Images because I'm going to spend a fair amount of time saying that I think that message is horrible, and I don't want anyone to get harassed because I linked their artwork. So just imagine a picture of a person hanging off of a cliff by their fingernails, and it says, "Failure is not an option" at the bottom. One day, My mentor teacher told me he hated that poster, but the admin had told him he had to let it stay up there. It would motivate the children. They'd try harder or something. So he had to leave it up there, and he hated it, and he wished he could replace it. I asked him why, and he told me because failure needs to be an option, and that has always stuck with me. Failure is how we learn a lot in life. Failure is learning. Life is about learning. If we are never allowed to fail, then we are not allowed to have one of the most profound and effective methods of learning available to us. If you never fail, you can never get back up. If failure isn't an option, that does not mean that success is the only option. It probably means don't try if you know you won't succeed right away. I've spent a lot of time, decades now, doing actual rock climbing, like in that poster, in my real life. And rule number one of staying alive is that failure must be an option. That is why you have ropes. I don't remember if the guy in the motivational picture had a rope or not. If he didn't, then I'm upset because that's just bad rock climbing safety. And if he did, then the statement on the bottom was false. The rope allows you to fail, and you make sure you have that rope secured. For those of you out there that don't rock climb, most climbers spend a lot of time and a lot of money making sure we can fail. And then we build systems into our systems that are backups in case the first system fails. And if you can put a third backup in there, you do that. Here's what I mean. First, there's the rope. Climbing ropes are incredibly strong and designed to hold up to tremendous pressure, especially shocks. They can stretch to absorb these shocks. You can hang a school bus from most climbing ropes. I've used old climbing ropes that I didn't trust anymore to hold my skinny butt, to pull 2-ton tractors and trucks out of ditches. Then there's your protection. Multiple inch bolts in the walls, cams pressed into cracks in the rock. In the past, we used to use pitons. We would secure top ropes around 2-ton boulders. You make sure your anchors are tight, secure, and when possible, doubled or even tripled up. You practice tying knots. The figure 8 gets burned into your brain. You think about load points and evening out stresses at your pitches and belay points. You dream about cramming cams into the cracks of walls and tugging on them. You have a set system of commands for your rock climbing buddies that is easy to understand. You spend more money on a Gree because it has an extra set of backups over an ATC. The point is, you set yourself up so you can fail. Because if at any of those points along the way it does fail, at the wrong time, you die. A friend of mine had a knot fail at about 50 feet above the ground once when we were about 19. He tied a figure 8 follow through incorrectly, and I didn't double check it like we always should. I had a date later that night and I was distracted. He was on the underside of an overhang, just like in that motivational picture, pulled over the edge, just like in that poster, and then he slipped. It probably wasn't even his fault. that particular rock in that particular place was home to a number of bats. And it wasn't uncommon to stick in your hand or your foot into a bunch of guano. He was wearing new shoes, and I think he pushed his foot, got less traction than expected, and didn't get the force to reach the next handhold. This is normal. He expected to fall. He fell. The next thing I knew, I pulled the rope tight to catch him, but the rope didn't catch like I thought it would, and in this moment I saw the knot slip and start sliding up the rope while the end of the rope started to slip towards the cinch point. It's one of those moments that takes a fraction of a second, but it seemed to last an eternity because I knew what was happening. Luckily, we had a backup, and a lazy fisherman's knot saved his life. He got caught in the cinch point just like it was designed to, and I got my friend to the ground. A little shook, but fine. He's old now, by the way. He's a retired Marine who works with network computers, and he has a bunch of daughters. Sometimes we chat over Steam. It's been a while since we've been snowboarding. The point is, failure has to be an option. Had we not had that option, he would have died, and a few decades of friendship and families would not have happened. I think about that fisherman's knot a lot. That knot changed the future. Failure had to be an option. We went back to that rock a couple days later, and we both climbed that same route, and we both got to the top, and you better be sure we double-checked those knots, and I have double-checked every single knot of every single climb that I've done in the last 20 plus years, over thousands of climbs, because failure has to be an option. If it wasn't, then trying would be too dangerous. If you cannot fail, then the better choice, the safer choice, logically, is to not try. Very, very few people succeed right off the bat, and generally, if you do, the thing you were probably trying to do was not that hard. There is no chance of failure. You learn nothing. As a teacher, I see this a lot, and I wish I knew how to fix it. Students are afraid to fail. We give them failing grades. We talk about how important it is that they do well in school. We show them how to get scholarships. We take the seniors at my school for a week at the end of their senior year, and we focus on budgeting in the real world. We do a day with our ninth graders where they play the game of light with fake careers, where they have to learn how to budget. We're trying to prepare them for the future. We want them to leave our school with skills they need so they can succeed, but sometimes I wonder if we're doing it the right way. We know that we have to put pressure on them, so when they leave the school, they have some preparation for the real world. There is so much to learn, and it isn't just reading and writing. It isn't just the subjects we teach. Sure, I may be telling them something important about psychology or American history, and I will go to my grave saying that reading is the most important skill a person can learn. So, you know I teach reading skills every day I can, but then there are the things like learning how to make a schedule, or a budget, or how to do a job interview, or talk to people, or interact with a group of other people, especially those people you don't really like or don't find it easy to talk to, because in the real world, you have to do that. We'd better teach those things too, because we're going to send these guys out into the world, and that world is a scary place where failure sometimes actually isn't an option. Or at least it doesn't feel like this. Fail, and you end up on the streets. Fail, and you lose your job. Fail, and you lose the people you love. Fail, and you die. So don't fail. Don't fail. Don't fail. I don't want you to fail. I want you to succeed. I tell my students, it's okay to struggle. I know what we're doing is hard. I know that it is frustrating. I know that you are scared, but trust me, you'll be okay. I say this, but what am I really saying? Failure is not an option. Failure has real consequences, so you'd better succeed. Man, we put a lot of pressure on 13-year-olds. Is failure an option? How do we make failure an option? Is this the appeal of dying 200 times to a turtle shell? Why am I still trying to stab this lizard goat man with a butter knife until he falls over? All while I'm not wearing any pants. My character, not in real life, pants in real life. Why don't I just do something else? Because I love it. Because I know I'll eventually win. Because I want that sense of accomplishment. Yes. But I also want more than that. It's so much more than that. Here in Elden Ring, getting smacked around over and over and over again, dying and falling off that cliff, and dying, and Margit taunting me. Here, I am safe. In the Mushroom Kingdom, when I die, I get to try again, and all it cost me was time. I am safe. It is safe to fail. I think that is the appeal. I am currently thinking of a particular student, and this particular student could be one of dozens of students I've talked to about the Souls games. My students know that I am a fan of Souls. I have an Estus flask that actually holds liquid that I actually drink out of. Sometimes I put orange or blue liquid in there to fill my mana or health. It's on my desk. I talk about the Souls series a lot. When Elden Ring came out, classes sometimes started with whatever ADHD-fueled adventure I'd found in the lands between. When a student does a challenge run, they generally tell me about it. This one wrote an essay about an SL1 run of Dark Souls 3, and we had been talking about it for a while. He was afraid to turn it in. It was finished, or at least it was at that point where he needed to turn it in. We'd workshopped it. He'd run it through multiple drafts, which I didn't even ask him to. This was a one draft thing that I was like, here, let's write this in 45 minutes. But he did that anyway. He went back and he worked it and he worked it and he worked it and he wanted it to be perfect, and it wasn't perfect. He couldn't figure out how to make it perfect. If it wasn't perfect, well, that wasn't an option. That was failure. And failure wasn't an option. Better to not hand in a thing that I told him was absolutely going to get a good grade, probably an A, probably a high A, because I'd seen so far and I knew that it had met the standards, and I was sure it was even better now than I saw it before. So please, 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 please just submit it. I just needed him to submit it so I could have proof in the system, so I could give him a grade, so I could raise his grade, so he wouldn't be getting an F anymore, and his mom get off his back, and then he'd just hand in those other things that he was missing, especially those ones that I knew he had done. He'd probably have an A. No, he'd definitely have an A in my class. And he'd definitely be on honor roll. And he'd get the waffle breakfast for students. That was in a few weeks. And waffles are awesome. So please, 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 just hand in your stuff. I don't want you to fail. It took at least a week for him to hand it in. This was me reminding him and asking him every day and reassuring him every day that it would be fine, and him telling me that he didn't think it would, but me trying to tell him as the teacher and the person in control of this that it would be. I think in the end he got a B in the class. I don't remember if he got waffles. But he told me so many times that it wasn't good enough. And after he finally submitted the paper and I read it, I asked him about the run. A Soul Level 1 run of Dark Souls 3 is orders of magnitude more difficult than the essay he wrote. I've tried it. I have yet to complete one. At least not one without glitches or serious cheese. Not like this run. A truly legit Soul Level 1. No weird exploits, just sheer dogged determination, failing over and over and over and over again, dying hundreds, maybe thousands of times, run back over the course of a year until he finally beat Nadir, the Nameless King, and Gale. He failed for months, and he never gave up until he succeeded. So why was handing in this paper so different? How could this kid be so willing to fail over and over and over? Why would he gleefully tell me about getting stomped by the Nameless King's wacky timings 100 times over? He would get this giant grin on his face as he'd tell me about how many times he died. Just like I sometimes giggle when I'm dying to turtle shells or weird lizard goat men with sticks. What was so different? Why could he let himself fail there, but school? Well, sometimes he'd rather not try because he thought he would fail. But wasn't it safe to fail in my class? I always say it's safe to fail in my class. I always tell them the struggle is where learning happens, that I'm proud of them when they struggle and work through it. A running theme in my class is that perfection is not possible, so we don't worry about it. I don't expect perfection. There is no such thing as a perfectly written paper. Faulkner couldn't do it. Shakespeare couldn't do it. Heck, even Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway, who I think is the best American author, couldn't produce perfection. So it's okay if you, a 13-year-old, do not have something that is perfect. I want you to struggle. And I want you to feel safe in that struggle. It is okay to fail. We fail until we succeed. It is safe to fail. But he didn't feel safe to fail. And here I am, failing over and over and over and over to this weird lizard goat man and loving every moment. Because in the world of video games, failure is an option, because here it is safe to fail, because if I die here, I can try again. There are no real stakes. I will eventually win if I just keep going. But real life isn't like that. In real life, when you die, you're dead. In real life, someone sometimes slips in back guano and fails. In real life, sometimes the risks are too great, not because a person is lazy or unmotivated, because they are realistic. We see movies that say follow your dreams, but in real life, opening a quirky cupcake shop is expensive, and if it fails, you are now in debt, jobless, without health insurance, maybe with kids who rely on you. So you better not follow your dreams, is what people think. There's too much on the line. Failure isn't an option. Not because you are guaranteed to succeed, but because you will probably fail. And in your mind, failure leads to death. You are climbing without a rope. What we need are ropes. I honestly believe that this is the cause of about half the failing grades in my classes. Sometimes a kid is lazy. Sometimes a kid just doesn't want to do a thing. But a lot of the time, they're just afraid to try. They are afraid to fail. They don't want to fail. Failure is not an option, but perfect isn't possible, so they don't try. They don't know they have ropes. They don't know the ropes are safe, that you could hang a school bus from that rope, that I've double-checked every single knot for the last 2 decades, that when I say, yes, if you try in my class, if you let yourself hand in your work, if I see you pushing yourself, then yes, here in my class, you have a rope, and you are safe to fail here. That's what schools are for, to provide a safe place to fail so our kids can learn enough to check their own knots and set up their own ropes. So when they get out there into the real world, they can set up a system where failure is an option, so they can fail. So the real world has the option for failure. Schools should be like Dark Souls or Elden Ring or Mario Maker or whatever game gives you that sense of, what is it? Freedom? Should I call it security? But do we? Do we do that? I don't think we do. And I know that sometimes I don't. That doesn't mean we should stop trying. And even though I know I'll never get it perfect, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep double checking knots. And I'm going to keep learning when I fail and making it safe to fail in my class. Miyazaki, can you teach me how to make a class that it is safe to fail in as it is safe to fail in Limgrave? How do we even do that? How do I do that? I don't know. I'm going to keep falling off that rock until I get a little closer, and a little closer, and a little closer, and a little closer, and hope one day that kid will believe me when I say failure is an option, because they will know that I am being honest when I say that they can truly be safe to fail until they succeed. If you're still here, thank you for listening. I hope that you had a good time. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, I guess, or don't. Anything you want to do with YouTube. It'd be cool. Bye.